Hey, hello friends, welcome to my channel. In this Azure DevOps tutorial series, today let's discuss about what is sprints in Azure boards. Okay, sprints in general is a very vast topic in Agile, but I'm not gonna dig into detail since this is a beginner level series. I am gonna focus only on some basics of sprints, which is enough for you to understand how sprints work with Azure boards. Right? So let's start looking at the definition. Sprints are a time box event of 1 week up to 1 month during which a product owner, scrum master and a scrum team work to complete a specific product addition. Okay, so what is a sprint? A sprint is a time boxed event. So say if you are working on a 2-week sprint, if a sprint started today, it will start today and will end after 2 weeks. If you are working on a month sprint, if it started today, it will end 1 month starting from today. Okay, so what you actually do within a sprint is, as a team, you work towards a sprint goal. Okay, so for example, say you are trying to build a product and you are working for multiple iterations and you are trying to build an MVP, that is a minimal viable product. So sprints are a smaller time boxed event. Okay, so you will have a set of tasks or user stories which you will try to achieve within a specific time event. Like it may be 1 week, it may be 2-week sprint, it may be 1 month sprint, depending upon the team you are working on. Okay, during a sprint, work is done to create new features based on the user stories and backlog. So all the work that is need to be done will be in a form of user stories, tasks, features and epics, right? So you can pull all those items from the backlogs into your sprint and start working on it accordingly. A new sprint starts immediately after the current sprint ends. So if, for example, if a sprint ended yesterday, a new sprint will start right away today. It will start today itself. All right. So what are the different ceremonies within a sprint? Okay, generally in Agile, you will have a sprint planning on the day one of the sprint. On the day one of the sprint. So in sprint planning session, you sit with various project stakeholders. You will try to estimate the amount of work that can be accommodated within the sprint. You will have a sprint goal and you will work towards that sprint goal. Say you are working in a development team. Okay, so you will estimate all the you will try to understand the user stories and you will try to pull it in from the backlog into your sprint, and you will estimate those user story based on your team's capacity, and you will start working on it, and you will try to achieve that sprint goal within a specific time that is provided for your team. Okay, so that's what you generally do within a sprint. That is what you generally do in a sprint planning session. You generally estimate the work and you will have a sprint goal defined. Daily you will have a scrum session, right? It's some people call it as a stand-up. It's just like a regular catch-up where you catch up with all your project stakeholders and try to resolve if there are any blockers and give general updates on what you worked on yesterday and how you are progressing with your sprint goal. That's what you generally do in your scrum meetings. And generally 1 or 2 days before the end of the sprint, you will have something called a sprint demo meeting where you will try to demo the product that you have built up to now to your project stakeholders, especially business team. You will try to showcase them what you have built as part of this sprint. Finally, you will have a sprint retrospective on the day. Some people do at the last day of the sprint, some people do at the beginning of the next sprint. Sprint retrospection is nothing but you will try to see what you have done for the sprint, right? What went well, what can be improved, and what things did not go well, and what are the major changes that you want to bring into the work that you are doing. Okay, so you will discuss upon all these items in the sprint retrospection and try to improve your work in the upcoming sprints. So these are the different ceremonies that is involved in a sprint. Okay, now let's jump onto our Azure portal and try to see how sprints work in Azure DevOps. So I logged into my Azure portal. I am going into my project online DevOps demo, which I've been using for demo purposes. So once I log in, on the left hand side we can see something called boards, right? So under boards we have something called sprints. So I'm clicking on sprints. So this is the view of the sprint. Currently I do not have any sprint created, so it is blank. So if you have created any sprint, it will display here under all team sprint. If you have marked something as favorite, it will show here as well. Okay, now let's go and create a new sprint. Okay, let me name it as sprint 1. And for demo purpose, I'm just starting it from today. Okay, I started the sprint today. Say if it is a 1 month sprint, it will end at September 20th. Okay, now I'm creating a new sprint. Right, you can see now my new sprint is created. You can see there are 22 work days in this particular sprint. If you want to include different working days also, you can go here under settings. You have something called working days. In case if your team is working on Saturdays or weekends, you can include those by checking those days as well. Okay, fine. So now we have created a sprint. Now let's see how we can pull the items from the backlog into our sprint. So you can see there's a schedule work option, and if there is no new work items created, you can also create a new work item by clicking on this new work item icon. So I'm gonna click on schedule work because I have already created few items in the backlog. So click on schedule work. Yeah, now you can see I have created in our previous session in the backlog video, I have created these user stories, right? So what we can do is, if you want to work on these user stories, all you need to do is just drag and drop this into your sprint. Okay, so generally the items in the backlog will be on the priority order, right? So I'm just pulling upon the very first item in my backlog into my sprint. So now if you see, there is no work scheduled in the sprint 1. Once I have added, you can see a single user story being added to the sprint 1. And if I want to add multiple user stories, I can add it here too. So now I have added 2 user stories here. Okay, now you can see this is my current sprint. So my this is the current sprint I am working on. Okay, so now if I go back, so this is the planning section view. So you can see there is an option called planning and mapping. So if I click on mapping, this will go off. In case if there are any mapping to do, you can do. And there is something called planning. So once I click on planning, I can see the sprint details here. Like if I log in tomorrow, it will tell 21 working days based on the current status. Okay, and yeah, that's all how you can create a new sprint. For example, if you have to create another new sprint, you can click here, sprint 2. So by default, since I've created a 1 month sprint, so it started by 21 because my sprint 1 ends at 20th of September 29, right? So the next sprint starts at 21/9 and the end date is by October 20th. So it filled for me by default and I'm just creating it. Now sprint 2 is also created. In case if you want to pull any work items into this sprint also, you can pull these user stories. So I am pulling the final user story into my sprint 2. Now you can see I have pulled the new user story into my sprint 2. Okay, this is how you can pull your user stories into the sprint and start working on it accordingly. So now what you need to do is you need to start working on this particular user story. Okay, so in general, you will have all the details within your user stories. Okay, and during sprint planning session, you will generally estimate the story points, like how much effort it is going for your team to complete this particular user story. So in general, you will have 7 to 9 working hours depending upon the team. Okay, so few teams have 7 working hours, few teams have 8 working hours. It varies according to the team. And if you are a lead level person who is handling multiple projects, then you will only estimate half of your efforts here, right? In that situation, it will be per day plus per day by half. Like if you are working on if you are working on 8 hours per day, your estimate will be 4 per day. Okay, so based on the estimation that you have prepared on the based on the effort that you have planned on the sprint planning session, you can provide your story points here. For example, say you are working 8 hours per day and it is going to take 2 complete days, you can add 16 story points for a single person to complete this particular user story. So I'm saving it. So the effort will be 16. Right. So now I switch back to the sprint view where I can see, now I can see my team sprint. Now I can see all team sprint, and since I've not marked as a favorite, it will still be blank. Okay, if I mark it as my favorite sprint, it will show here too. Okay, so this is how you can create a sprint and add work items from your backlog into a sprint and start working on it accordingly. Okay guys, that's all what I want to cover as part of this sprint video. In case if you have any queries, please post it into the comment section. If you like this video, please subscribe and follow my channel. Thank you.